my ear this whole time. If everyone gets hot. All right, will do. Welcome to the August 13th meeting of the Nantucket Memorial Airport Commission. We're meeting hybrid here in person and via Zoom. We do have Commissioner Planzer on via Zoom, so we will take all votes in this meeting by roll call. And I'll conduct a roll call to start the meeting. Is Ms. Topham on the Zoom as well, or were we not expecting her?
She's not on the Zoom yet, but she was supposed to join online.
Okay, so if we see her, then we'll please, if I don't notice, please let me know. We'll certainly acknowledge her. Ms. Planzer, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Yes.
All right, we can hear you. Thank you. And Mr. Marks, Mr. Buscarin, and myself are all here in person. Are there in the meeting is being both audio and video recorded. Anything that you say on Zoom or here in the meeting may be captured by the recording, which would be posted on YouTube at a later date. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns with the agenda as published? No. Okay, we'll consider that adopted unanimous consent. We have the minutes from the July 9th meeting. Are there any questions, comments, concerns with those minutes? Seeing none, we'll consider those adopted by unanimous consent. We have to ratify the June 30th and July 24th warrants. Are there any concerns or a motion to ratify those two warrants?
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Ms. Planzer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Aye.
Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. That'll bring us to public comment for any items which are not otherwise on the agenda. Mr. Smith?
I'd like to chat about an RFP that might be awarded tonight.
We will take that up. That is on the agenda under pending leases and contracts.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
Mrs. Topham, she's online right now, and I do have a letter with Lepre.
Perfect. Before I go to Ms. Lepre, Ms. Topham, can you hear us? Let's just make sure that we have her participation before we move forward.
There we go.
Do you see me now?
Well, we see your name and we can hear you.
Okay, I don't want to be seen because I'm.
Say
I'm
no,
not
no.
very well.
No. Okay, thank
Okay,
Topham.
thank you. All right, see you later, boys. Thank you. I have a house full of boys or men. Take
Okay,
care.
if maybe you could mute.
They've gone. They've gone.
Thank you. Ms. Lepre, the floor is yours. Just before you start, Ms. Lepre, I just did, excuse me, I'm sorry. I did want to state that we are following per the published agenda, the protocols established by the select board for public comment, but you do have 3 minutes.
Perfect. I just have two comments. One is, I read in the minutes, I think I think it was from your June meeting, I'm not sure, about the noise complaints, and you didn't think that Noah felt they didn't come from the airport, and I sincerely disagree, and I have plenty of videos of it on my phone that I am happy to share with the commission if you would like to hear them from my deck, and they were most certainly, there's no other large trucks doing work in this residential neighborhood. My other concern, or I guess comment, is the PFAS meeting that we had a couple weeks ago was really amazing. I don't know that any of you were able to attend, which is really unfortunate because the scientists were there, do all of this amazing research, both at Notre Dame and also with the EPA about PFAS, and commented that one of your LSPs said that PFAS isn't volatile, but it actually is. And that there was a question about water testing, and that no study is ever just one test, which is so fascinating to me because I think a lot of the neighbors here have been told that just one test was enough. And I think it is really interesting to hear that I think you guys were being maybe informed by your LSPs that one test was enough. And I think that was incorrect information. I would love for the town to use maybe scientists that do actual research rather than LSPs, because I think the LSPs are reading the research that these scientists write and interpreting it however they want. And some of these companies like CDM Smith and Weston, I think also probably work for chemical companies. So I would just wonder where their allegiance lie. And I guess you guys are paying them, so maybe they want to write a report that will be beneficial for you. I'm not sure, but the meeting was super interesting. And if you can get a hold of Aisha and listen to it, I think that it was really, really enlightening and a lot of really interesting research that has happened. That was all.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lepre. We will have more discussion later in the meeting on the on further sampling related to PFAS. That will bring us on to pending leases and contracts set forth on Exhibit 1, and I will turn it over to Manager Carberg. And if we could also
Henry?
share exhibit.
Come here, you're writing.
Ms. Lepre, if you could please mute. Thank you. Oh, I think you select the second screen. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a few items on the exhibit 1 today. The first is listed as a lease agreement with ACK Mobile Mechanics. I recommend not to award the lease for 33 Bunker and recommend that the commission exercises its right to reject all proposals for the RFP. I base this recommendation on 3 items. The town chief procurement officer has strongly recommended to us this course of action as only one firm attended the review and spoke in support of their proposal, which might have created the appearance of an unlevel playing field. And the town CPO's advice weighs very heavily with me. Also, the RFP evaluation criteria and then the references exhibit that were attached to the RFP are inconsistent with each other, which led to confusion among the evaluation committee and possibly proposers in regards to the number of references. And then we can also take the opportunity to review the best operational and financial use of the parcel for the airport. So the airport can review these items and re-release an RFP in the near future. The next item.
Maybe if,
Do you want to
I know,
take a quick-
yeah, if we could, please, I think that I understand there's some interest in this one. And so I would think we should perhaps take this one separately. Mr. Smith, is this the one you wanted to speak on? If you could come up to the table or at least speak up, you don't have to necessarily come to the table as long as you can capture the recording can capture you.
Sure.
Or you're welcome.
I think the main crux.
In 3 minutes, just.
Sure.
Thank you.
The main crux here is, do you mind if I hand out a little
Nope.
with everybody? This just kind of spells out. There was a little confusion, might be honest confusion on the scoring process. Right there is highlighted how the RFP is supposed to be scored. And in this little packet, it shows how it was scored. And subsequently, how that score at the end of the evaluation after a tie was actually changed. I'd like for you guys to page through this. And if you have any questions for me, I've highlighted the pertinent information. I've also highlighted on the back page how much more my bid is than the other bid over the 30 years, which I think is important.
And if I could, Mr. Smith, do you have any other comments or this is it?
The main comment that I have is if you look at the notes of the scoring, Mr. Carberg, Ms. Nelson, and Cameron Woods, you'll see on Cameron Woods and Ms. Nelson that they actually scored correctly what the bid should be, but at the end, for some reason, they scribbled out their score and scored it higher at the end of the meeting incorrectly. And I think that right there, I don't really want to throw this out. I think that I won fair and square from a points system, and I don't think we should be throwing this out. I think that we should review exactly what the proposals are.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else that wanted to speak on this?
Yeah, so,
If you could identify yourself for the record, please.
yep, my name is Vincent Goulding. I was one of the proposers for 33 Bunker Road. I sent in my proposal to the best that I could. Mr. Smith says that I didn't have the criteria for the references. I just did what I thought was best, and, you know, I've worked really hard to get where I am now to submit this proposal. I was awarded the lease already on June 28th. And, you know, I've already spent a lot of money preparing for this lot, and now, you know, a couple days before this, maybe like a week before this meeting here. Now that's all changing, which is kind of shocking and disheartening. You know, I really don't know what to say of it, because I've spent a lot of money already on preparing for the lot, between surveyors, engineers, fencing, all sorts of stuff, and I have stuff that you can see what I've already spent, you know, because I had good faith in the letter that I received from the airport management that it was supposed to go to me, because it was going to benefit the airport, the community. When you needed, you know, another mechanic at the airport, another mechanic on the island, and someone to do towing on the island as well.
Understand. Thank you. Yes, sir. If you could identify yourself. Go
Richard
on.
Larrabee, representing Island Marine Restoration. I also submitted a bid on this property. I'd like to offer support for the initial opening statements that there was definitely confusion. I think both in the scoring and how things were supposed to be submitted. I saw some of the notes on the scoring, and I'd offer support for Jeff in that, there seemed to be some oddities or inconsistencies at best. Alternatively, I'd like to propose, maybe it's like way out of left field, but where we already have two people that have strong feelings that they should be awarded the proposed space. I don't know what the airport has available. I don't know how much vacant land you guys have. But in the interest of being fair and open to everybody, maybe there should be a consideration to award everybody some space. Maybe not off of that same parcel, but if you had other parcels that were similarly divided or square footage wise, you were willing to accept $3 a square foot from Vincent. Jeff offered significantly more, but maybe all things being equal and trying to smooth out everything, you give multiple families and multiple businesses the opportunity to sustain their income and remain on the island. Because honestly, that's where we're at as Island Marine. I spent the past 6 months looking for space all over Nantucket, different zoning, different deed restrictions. I mean, the roadblocks are significant. And I mean, I own 4 acres on Homing Pond Road that I can't use because of zoning. I can't park boats on my own land. Otherwise, like I wouldn't even be in this mix. But all that being said, I think there's an alternative solution that could satisfy both the airport's needs, their economics, and give at least the 3 gentlemen here in the room an opportunity to continue to provide for their families and stay on Nantucket, which I believe is an objective of the town. I hear a lot that the town wants local families to stay, and they want to find a way to help us with housing and all these things. And this seems like a really good opportunity for the town to step up, if not just as the airport, and offer support.
Thank you, Mr. Larrabee, and thank you all. Appreciate all of you, you know, taking the time to put the bids in. The situation is that it's a public procurement process, you know, as it's municipal land, that we must follow that process. And if we were just a private landlord and could make that decision and, you know, just divvy it up, we, you know, could consider that, but it's not something that is legally within our authority to do. And I think that the hardest part of this particular one, dispute aside, is that the finance director for the town of Nantucket, who's the chief procurement officer, has raised concerns with the process that, you know, that was done. And I think that my fear sitting here, and I'll open this to the commission, but that you know, to to best protect the airport. These are long-term land leases. Is that we have to follow the suggestion and advice of the chief procurement officer of the town, who also has to, you know, is involved with these leases. So there is additional there. The airport does have additional land, and I think we have to take this time to know that we have this interest is helpful, and then look to see what other land leases we can put out for to be bid on. This one, there's some properties on Sun Island Road. I don't know what's left in the bunker off the top of my head, but we should reevaluate all of these. The hard part is, of course, August is not the time, you know, from the airport's operation to do that. You know, this was done earlier, and you know, I don't want to completely say off season, but it is fairly, I think, takes a time commitment on the part of staff, and we just need to, I think, revisit the whole process. I feel for investments that may have been made based upon the decision, but my understanding is until the commission actually voted on it, the lease hadn't been awarded. Is that correct? Mr.
Yeah,
Barber?
I'll offer one friendly clarification. I believe we awarded, made a notice of award to ACK Mobile Mechanics, but we did not award the lease at that time. The lease is what would have been approved by the commission. So it isn't a lease award.
I could see the confusion there, but you know, the ink wasn't dry, if you will, on the actual documents, and so, you know, I don't think that the process was completed until it came here as part of this process, which is, it's unfortunate for all parties, I understand, but you know, it will ultimately, I think, be up to a vote of the commission. But I have to follow myself. I would be inclined to follow the recommendation of the manager and of the finance director of the town of Nantucket. So, Mrs. Smith, I don't think we should keep.
Just a quick question.
Go ahead.
Just wondering specifically what the town procurement officer stated was confusion in this lease. I feel it's very, very clear. And if you read that first statement right there, the underlined statement, that's what this whole thing is about. And it's very, very clear. There's no confusion. I don't understand how there's any confusion. If you read that, the word "and" is the key word. You have to have both.
I got it.
There's zero confusion.
I think it was with the process and the opening. If I'm yes. Oh, thank you. So, Mr. Turbot, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Can everybody can hear me okay?
We can.
So, there were a few things that I identified in discussion with the airport relative to this. The largest issue is that under Chapter 30, Section 16, the evaluations have to be undertaken in a public forum, which the evaluation committee did. However, nothing in the RFP indicated that there would be an opportunity for any proposer to make any presentation to the evaluation committee in the form of an interview or anything of that sort. And given the fact that one of the proposers was allowed to speak, albeit under public comment, in my opinion, it unfairly unleveled the playing field because no other proposer had the same opportunity to do that, which is a key tenet of the procurement process, that all respondents to a proposal, to an offering such as a lease, opportunity for a lease, have to be provided the same opportunity as any of the other proposers. And 3 of the proposers did not have that opportunity. I believe one other proposer may have known that the meeting was happening, but 2 of them were not notified about the meeting. So that, in my opinion, immediately created an unlevel playing field for any of the other respondents who did not have an opportunity to make a presentation or highlight or point out any key components of their offering to the airport. Secondly, there was some confusion, in my opinion, because in the minimum criteria, it specifically listed the number of references that were required for the proposal to move forward, and then you were required to rank those. In my opinion, you needed to have it in one or the other. It couldn't have been in both. And lastly, I think that, that's pretty much it. But I think the biggest issue with this was because there was no indication that any respondent to this would be able to make any comments or offer an interview type opportunity, that it created an unlevel playing field for all involved. I would note that the RFP does specifically say that the lease could be awarded to a respondent who offers the best proposal, but that does not necessarily mean will be the highest lease price. So price is one component of it, but the RFP is very clear that the airport has the ability to choose the proposal that it believes is in the best interest and the best overall proposal, including price, but being the highest price doesn't automatically guarantee that the lease would be awarded to that individual proposer.
Thank you, Mr. Turbot. I really appreciate you taking the time to attend this meeting and help to clarify that.
May I ask Mr. Turbot two questions?
No,
They're very important questions, sir.
I think we're done. Jeff, we're done.
Was it a public?
Jeff, I don't want to have to have.
Was it a public meeting?
Jeff, I don't want to, we're not having any further. Like, I gave you the opportunity to speak.
This is unacceptable.
That's fine, Jeff.
This is wrong.
Jeff, we gave you opportunity to make your comments.
I have new information here from Mr. Turbot that I'd like to talk about. Please,
Commissioners, should we?
please.
I would let him talk.
Okay, go ahead.
I feel like we're trying to hide something.
We're not trying to hide anything, Jeff, but we're trying
Mr.
not to
Turbot,
have.
was this a public meeting? Was it a public meeting? Was it posted as a public meeting? Then it doesn't matter. If it was posted as a public meeting, it doesn't matter. Second, I'd like for someone else to read what's on this paper right here. This is
ahead,
another something that Mr. Turbot was talking about. These are the things that he wants to throw this whole thing out about, and they're not correct.
Well,
It was a public meeting that was posted.
I
Everybody
appreciate-
knows about it.
I appreciate
There's nothing-
your opinion that the finance director is not correct. You're entitled to your opinion. And at this point, we hear that's the direction that we're getting there. And so
Please read that and consider what you're doing here. I don't think this is right.
I will read aloud just the highlighted part. It says that respondents are prohibited from communicating with airport officials and their staff regarding the RFP and proposals from the time the RFP has been released until the contract is posted as an airport commission agenda item, other than as noted above, and airport employees from the time the RFP has been released until the contract is awarded, is what he highlighted. So I understand that this is, troubling to some folks, but I think we heard from our finance director, and it's really at this point up to the commission whether to move forward to award this lease or to follow the recommendation of the manager. And with that, I would appreciate a motion in one direction or the other.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to add something to it, if that's okay.
It's your motion.
So I'd like to make a motion that I feel, because of the recommendation, that we really can't go forward in good faith because of what's been presented today. I feel like it only opens us up to further problems down the road with this. If somebody challenges the lease after we award it, and then that even makes it worse for that person. If that person that challenges it wins, then if you were in there, then you'd lose the lease and you'd be all set up and you'd have to leave. Potentially, right? That's the downside of us awarding it tonight. If we did do that, I would say that with saying that I feel I agree with, the recommendation by the finance director, right? That's what it is.
Yes, Mr. Turbot.
Mr. Turbot, that I would like to see us because of the nature of this and the importance of it to the folks that did try to get the property, that we act on it quickly. Not to just put it on the back burner, to put it on the front burner, because there was a little bit of a misunderstanding, however it's supposed to be handled. I don't know enough about it to understand. I understand what he said. So I feel like I would like to see it come to the forefront to be reissued as soon as possible with clarifications so that these guys can then move forward and try to get their businesses sorted out, whoever does get it, and obviously, so that's my motion.
I appreciate that. In the motion format, the motion would be,
We have to go with the,
not to award the lease and then, follow up with staff for reissuance.
as soon as possible, right? Expeditiously, I'm not just want to try to say it needs to be expedited.
The motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'd like to ask a question. What's the process for Mr. Smith to proceed at this point?
You mean to object to this not being awarded?
No, to get his lease.
Oh, we would put out RFP again and everybody would get to resubmit a proposal.
When was it that Brian Turbin decided that the process didn't comport with the law?
I believe so. I don't remember our evaluation date. But it was shortly after our evaluation date and that would have been posted.
So the evaluation is June 27th.
So they're saying the evaluation on June 26th, so sometime shortly thereafter.
Within a week or 2 weeks after that date. I'm guessing, without going back to my emails and looking at the dates.
So what's the process? You've got land that's available for lease.
Sure.
You put an RFP. People make applications for the property. I understand there's more than one application for this particular piece of property.
Yep.
Then there was a process in which one person had an opportunity to speak and the other two did not. Therefore, the process was defective. Is that
My understanding of what I've heard, there was the ability for anybody to show up and speak. One respondent did, but from what I just heard from Mr. Turbot, because the RFP didn't specify that proposal, that opportunity would exist for all, that what he said is what unleveled the playing field.
Okay.
And essentially, I think, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but what I hear is it tainted the process. It could be viewed as having tainted the process where one proposer could be deemed as having been more of an advantage than another. And I think the intent of Chapter 30B is to award contracts, as fairly and level playing field, to summarize it, as I understand it.
So how does Mr. Smith reapply? I mean, what's the timing?
Just like everybody can, we have to re-advertise, we have to rework the proposal in any manner that it might get refined based on perhaps what was, for example, including language that there would be such a meeting, right? So whatever to perfect the proposal based upon the outcome of this unfortunate situation so that it could be avoided, and then put it back out through the typical process of the requirements of Chapter 30B, which includes statutory advertising and publication and response times, deadlines, all of those procedures.
This sounds like a 5-month process.
It's only a month. It needs to be out for 30 days.
Okay. And when will it be put out again?
So I think that is part of, we would defer to staff for their time to reevaluate this and be able to figure out when we can put it back out.
My hope, knowing the importance the commission is giving to it, is that we try to turn it back out within 30 days.
Okay.
And has a 30-day advertisement time, and then we will do what we can to prioritize the review.
Okay. Sharon?
How do we, sorry. How do we?
Chairman,
Yes, one second. Sorry. Yes, Ms. Planzer.
Is there a possibility for other parcels that you mentioned something about Sun Island?
Yes, please, Mr. Carver.
Prior to the RFP process, we bring to the commission a disposal of surplus property that will list the parcel by number, size, and estimated square foot value. So I'm hesitant to give you a date for other parcels because we have to look at those parcels and see, excuse me, if our appraisal is current and valid. And we would have to bring those to the commission, and the commission would have to approve that disposal of surplus property before we can issue an RFP for that property.
Okay, but there is a possibility that maybe there would be other opportunities if,
Correct.
in
Yes.
addition to this. Okay,
But my sense, if I may, is that probably wouldn't go out simultaneously if
oh,
this,
right.
if this one was to be advanced as quickly as possible. The other alternative I think that the commission could consider would be to hold this one, reevaluate what other parcels and put several out at the same time. I don't think that's what we maybe should do given this, but if we wanted them to have more than one option at the same time, I think then it would probably delay putting this one back out. Does that seem correct,
Okay.
Mr. Cartwright? So we have I think we're gonna, at this point, just keep it to, Mr. Arman.
Sorry, I was just gonna ask, how do we make sure and identify the evaluation team? Is it going to be different airport personnel, or we pull in somebody from the town to make sure that that evaluation is fair?
I would like to answer this.
Yes,
At
please.
this point, I would like to invite a member from the town's finance team, whether that's Mr. Turbot or his designee. Because this was the first time we were scoring bids with the new state rule to hold them in public, and I think everybody would have a comfort level if we added one person from their team who has more experience in that specific meeting.
Thank you. Okay. With that, we have, at this point, the motion's been made by the commission, the discussions by the commission. So I think we're gonna hold it from there. And if you had additional questions and wanted to reach out to the staff following the meeting, please certainly feel free to do that. I think we're gonna hold.
I think it's fine.
So we have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Ms. Planzer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Aye.
Mr. Scarron?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Thank you.
Mrs. Topham.
I'm sorry?
Ms. Topham.
Oh, Ms. Topham, I'm so sorry. Ms. Topham? Ms. Topham, are you with us?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. It's hard when I don't
I'm so
have the
sorry.
screen and see. Okay, I think we'll carry on then from there. Ms. Topham, if you can hear us, or when you're able to get your mic on, please feel free to just interject. That will take us back to Exhibit 1, Mr. Carver.
Okay, so I'll take the remainder of the items. Please let me know if you have questions along the way. We have a license agreement with Stowe Enterprises doing business as Fresh Air Services. It's for an annual business fee plus a 20% of gross for aircraft cleaning services. What I have set up in this agreement is to waive the 20% of gross from the time the lease is set for the operating agreement. The license agreement is signed until December 31st of this year. The reason for that being that the licensee is missing the meat of the season coming to us in August. And it's still a service I would like to provide. I think it's a good one to have through the FBO. And then after the first of the year, we will then receive our 20% of gross. I have a contract amendment with Blown Away Heating and Cooling. It's a non-monetary change order to a contract duration. I have a contract with Mass Tank Inspection Services for $423,534 over 3 years. Again, it's over 3 years, and it also includes epoxy repair work to our Jet A tanks in year 1 and 2, which causes some of the price inflation from previous years. I have a contract with McFarland Johnson for $6,600. It's for our annual third-party botanical monitoring services. in support of our TAC meeting. I have a contract amendment with McFarland Johnson for $73,322.76 credit. This is from our multi-year task order that evolved, PFAS response task order that evolved from its inception, had something on the order of 6 working amendments. And that balance represents a net credit after the completion of our phase 2 work. We went on through the study and we moved to other items based off the previous results. So there's a credit associated with that. Administratively, we'd like to close down the phase 2 task order and then open up a new phase 3 task order rather than continually amending. It makes our accounting a lot easier. And then we have that contract with McFarland Johnson for $410,579.43. This is for phase 3 of the source area investigation. This is separate from our next set of home connections, which I'll discuss in a moment. This task order will continue quarterly drinking water sampling of homes down gradients. It will continue bottled water delivery until homes are connected. It will expand drinking water sampling to homes west of the airport that are not connected to water. I know that that's an item that was previously mentioned that's important to the public, and we're working on rolling out a schedule for accomplishing that. We'll also provide, the task force will provide continued IRA status updates, the phase 3 comprehensive response action, and install additional groundwater level monitoring wells. And then the final item, which you have via handout, I'm requesting approval not to exceed $30,000 to start substantively on the water service connections. I'll discuss the water service connections in more detail during my PFAS report. But I think you all understand it's to connect our next set of points. I'm expecting the full task order to follow in September. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions on any of the contracts or amendments? The public. I had one comment, which was on the McFarland Johnson phase 3 in the sampling. I had mentioned to the manager, and I'll just mention it here in public and to the commission. As we roll out our next sampling approach, I hope that we could expedite that as much as the consultants, and approvals are required, but that we really can use this contract to get more sampling done. And I know that there's talk of there's some distinctions between inside of the boundary, the perimeter of the boundary, and then further step out. My hope, having reviewed those maps, is that we could do inside the boundary and the properties that abut the boundary at the same time. That's not a directive. I'm going to support this, but that's my hope, that they may be able to not segment all of those. If they could do in the first round those samples, I think that would be positive. We're going to be doing them anyway. I think that if we get these done and be responsive to some of the public concerns and comments, that some of the decision making, as we heard in the public comment, has been as a result of a single sample, that this really would help. And I appreciate both staff and MJ and Weston really working to pull this very sizable contract together for tonight's meeting. So thank you.
Good night.
Yes.
I just want to, I didn't know if this now or
Yeah,
later,
please.
but I just, because you brought it up about the sampling, I know, like, I have a lot of friends too, as we all do around the island, that have this concern now. People around wells. I didn't know, not that we would pay for it, but I didn't know if there's a good avenue through these guys for private, other people that maybe are not directly affected to be sampled and pay some fee to have that done for them, so that it's done properly. I mean, I've seen prices anywhere from like $78 to like $800 to do one of these tests, and I'm doing some samples over on the Cape, and we have to like refrigerate them after we take them and all this stuff and get them straight to the labs. I'm not an expert on the process. I was just hoping that if we can, by doing this with these guys, if there's even a paid portion of that where somebody could get a sample done on their own private house, or at least help them to figure out how to get it done properly. That's what it's.
I don't have an answer for that, but I have a standing meeting. The next one is actually tomorrow with our PFAS group and our PFAS team, so I'll bring that idea to them and then also make sure there were the comments on expedited sampling.
Just a thought to that point, you know, we've got the ACT-PFAS website that again is on our agenda. I want to hype it or promote it as much as possible to folks that have questions about what's happening, and perhaps I think we want to be careful. Well, I'll defer to you. Perhaps there's a tab or some informational direction that could be added to that for somebody that's not the airport, but to say, here are potential vendors, something like that for sampling. So just a thought that website might be a way that at least if somebody asks, you can say, here's some of that information.
Yeah.
So is there with that a motion to approve the contracts amendments laid out on Exhibit 1?
So
Second.
Most have been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Ms. Planzer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Topham?
Aye, and aye on the previous one too.
Thank you. Mr. Marks?
Aye.
Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you. That brings us on to election of officers and to assign subcommittee members. Are there any nominations for chair?
I'll nominate Arthur Gasparo, the chair.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, is there I guess we'll have to take a vote on that then. Ms. Planzer?
Aye.
Ms. Topham?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
aye.
Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
And I say thank you all. I appreciate the vote of confidence and will continue to do the best I can.
Thanks for your service.
Thank
Is
you.
there-
Thanks for your hard work.
I appreciate it. We're a team. We're all working on this together as is staff. And so is there a nomination for vice chair?
I nominate Ms. Planzer.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. Ms. Topham, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Aye.
Mr. Buscarin?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Ms. Planzer,
Aye.
you accept the nomination? I guess I should have said that first. It's sort of like all right, thank you. And
Thank
thank
you.
all of your support and help in all of these matters. It's much appreciated, your counsel. And subcommittee members, unless anybody, I think we could just hold the same subcommittees unless anybody wanted to change. We've really been functioning primarily as a commission without subcommittees. If, I think that helps us to keep the matters really, even if the meetings are a little bit longer, everybody participates and keeps the matters quite public. And not that the subcommittee meetings aren't posted, but it's filmed and that sort of thing. That being said, should we find a need for, items that might benefit from the subcommittees, we have the standing subcommittees. Okay, thank you. Any concerns with that or feel different?
No.
All right. And then we have the grant signing letter of authorization. This is our annual letter to authorize the chair to sign grant authorizations up to, would you please remind me, my iPad, so
50,000.
50,000. There's no change in this from previous years. No. Is there a motion to authorize the grant signing letter?
I'll make that motion.
1 second.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Planzer,
Aye.
Topham,
Aye.
Mr. Marks.
Aye.
Mr. Buscarin.
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you. And that'll move us on to the South Apron Ramp Expansion Project update, Mr. Carberg.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we took beneficial occupancy of the ramp on Tuesday, July 30th. We completed work 1 week early despite taking a 1 week delay to start. We are under budget, though final payments for teenage releases need to be issued before I can provide the details of coming. So again, we're ahead of schedule, under budget, and through difficult circumstances. I wanted to thank our airport team, McFarland Johnson and Robert B. Auer. We're working with National Grid through a easement issue to place the transformer and connect the ramp lights and noise monitoring station, and prioritizing that work and pursuing a temporary license until we can complete the easement. The mitigation work and the ecological monitoring work will be ongoing through the fall. And we just have a few punch list work items in addition to the items I've previously mentioned over the next couple of weeks. For the noise barrier, McFarland Johnson is working with an acoustical subcontractor in the airport to gather operational data. And for example, they're looking for specific jet model numbers, locations, and operational data to model in the software. We just had a meeting today with the sub-consultant to provide that. We decided to use the case data for Sunday, August 4th of last year with our arrival and departure operations type data. This is one of our busiest days of the year, and we're trying to model a peak scenario. The wall itself is it's actually very compatible with solar panel installation. So I've given direction to our engineering team to include specs towards accommodating that as a design alternate. McFarland Johnson has also met with the wall manufacturer to discuss wall styles and materials, and they're scheduling additional meetings with other vendors. And they're also working on scheduling the borings with the geotechnical consultants. Are there any questions before I move on to the PFAS update?
I had a question. Mr. Lasden, if I could ask you, what is your anticipated timing on HMH concluding their study? I'm not going to hold you exact dates, but just could you give us a general guideline as to how you see the remaining process going?
They originally indicated to us they needed 3 months of time, Mr. Chairman. So
today, 3 months from a month ago.
So they got their contract about 3 weeks ago or so. So I'd say they probably have another 2 months or so to go.
And then just generally speaking, your timing, are you able to do work, at the same time as they're doing some of their stuff? Or are you sort of on hold for the modeling and then picking up from there?
So we're going to, as the airport manager said, we're going to schedule our geotech work to get our soil strata information. And we're meeting with some vendors now on wall types and materials. And as the chair indicated, the potential for solar panels on the face of the wall. So we've started looking at some of the design, but we really need their final data to formalize the design to put it out to bid.
And then from when you have that, just generally, are you 3 months out, 6 months out?
I wouldn't say, probably 3 months, I would say, to finalize our design.
Again, I'm not holding you to any specific date. I just think we want to really, I'm also trying to help inform the public.
Of course.
Because we have, started using the ramp to some, extent, and it was a commitment made by the commission. So we appreciate that being worked on. Thank you very much. Commissioners, any other questions regarding Mr. Carberg's update on the South Apron?
No.
Okay, why don't we move on?
Oh, just a question. How's it working out?
Great.
I saw a bunch of planes parked down the other day.
Yeah, operations, I'll have a more detailed update, but it's working out really well. For our PFAS update, the PFAS table is in your packet, I believe, as a handout. 555 samples have been taken from 80 private wells. And as I've reported previously, we intended to, and we've now started a second round of residential water connections in response to both Mass DEP's stated intention to meet or exceed the EPA's newly promulgated drinking water standard and that EPA standard itself. We sent letters to 11 residents on the west and south sides of the airport, and we have begun through our consultant meeting with homeowners. I anticipate connections are going to take 3 different forms. The first is that the airport contracts and performs the work through our engineering company. And we pay those costs directly. The second is that we reimburse a homeowner if they've already made a connection, and I know of at least 2 cases where that's already occurred. And that 3, we approve payments directly to contractors for homeowners that are already partway through the process. So there are some homeowners who have contacted a plumber and an excavator to line that work up. They have the work scheduled. I'm not sure if it's scheduled, but they have prices, they have commitments, so we'll make those payments directly. And then I follow up to several questions that were asked in last month's commission meeting, and then from one-on-one conversations that I've had. I plan on having Weston back here for the October meeting to provide an update and answer the questions. For the monitoring well installation west of the airport, these wells, we want them to delineate groundwater flow patterns. So we're looking for wells we can access easily and obtain repeated elevation data flow. So the need is specific to that use and not accessing private wells. For the geothermal system, we had initial conversations about updating or improving the system. We ruled out treatment in place. The water flow rate and volume isn't suitable for treatment in place with a filter. Moving the wells doesn't solve issues of potential plume migration, so we ruled that one out. So it will be either conversion to a closed loop system or replacing the system for a conventional system. Those are the 2 options I've asked the engineer to review and design improvements for a new system. For crew quarters, we've begun our regular stakeholder meetings with Pearl and the owner's project manager. The limit of work is staked out on Overdeer Farm Road. We're going to review that, and then we're going to brush mow the understory. We're working on our sewer permit and sewer capacity fee. I actually just signed sewer capacity fee documents today, and I've reached out to town. We will be pursuing an exemption to that fee as municipal and a housing-based project. Municipal entity and a housing-based project. I've reached out to schedule a meeting with public safety and the contractor on the sewer connection work. We realized that it's going to take place on a busy road. And I wanted to start conversations early about, what that work needs to look like to keep the road open and operational. We've received our foundation permit. We're anticipating fall receipt of the modular boxes and spring occupancy. And then internally, we're discussing our management approach to the building, whether that will be internal or RFQ for services, potentially something hybrid. And that's something I'll bring back to the commission for their input in September. Yeah. Any questions before I move on to the terminal and our guest presentation?
So you think that we're going to have this, the building available for occupancy in the spring? Is there any anticipated number of people that you think we could rent property to there? I mean, we have a list of people that are possible tenants, or this going to be empty?
So the short answer is 9. I intend to fill it.
Okay.
If we have occupancy still left over, we'll go to police and fire and see if they can utilize that season. But there are 8 en-suites. One side of the structure is 8 en-suite bedrooms, common kitchen, common living area. And then the other side of the structure is a self-contained 1-bedroom manager's apartment. And I anticipate we will fill it.
And if I may, we also have into play, and I think this will be part of perhaps next month's discussion or playing, there's still the Thompson house. And so part of it becomes, are we people that you might have had in that house or that you had this year, seasonal employees, are you putting them into this one instead? Does the commission start to consider rehabilitation or what might have to happen at that house? Is that house used differently? So my sense is if you have been putting that essentially that many people in that house seasonally, they perhaps are going to go into the new facility instead of there, and then that's going to free up the other one either for additional housing that may be needed or to start to consider what work might need to be needed there. So I think that'll be a agenda item more for probably next month to continue to start to hone in, I think, on the management, as Mr. Carberg just mentioned, how that gets handled. And, you know, I don't see that as a decided in 1 month. I think that's a bigger discussion. But perhaps so thank you. Thank you for all your work on that. It's really great to start breaking ground there.
Yeah, it's interesting building homes now.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, for the terminal optimization project, before I recognize the presenters, I have one brief item. We submitted the Bill ATP program for funding for next fiscal year. We'll have one more opportunity next year. And then I've invited Jonathan McCready and Priyanka Menon back to present 3 options for further design following their existing conditions review. This is a follow-up to their presentation from the last meeting. Well, I'm asking if you have it to give them some direction on the 3 options. It's not required. It's certainly something you can take time and consider until some time. But with that, Priyanka and Jonathan, the floor is yours.
Welcome.
Oh, and I'm sorry, Jonathan, one more. I've seen these documents before. If you would like, I do have a recommendation for you on the style we've reviewed from staff, but I'd really like commission feedback to happen first.
Go ahead, please.
All right, thank you. Just a very quick overview, and then Priyanka will be able to go through the details. Thank you for your time. This is another in a series of conversations that we'll be having about the future of the terminal and how best to modernize it for the needs of Nantucket now and importantly into the future. So Priyanka, we'll turn over to you to be able to walk through the options that we've been developing over the past month.
All right, sounds good. Good evening, everybody. Let me pull up my screen. Are you able to see this?
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for the quick intro. Just to give you a brief overview, building on what we discussed last in July, we looked at existing conditions, the laser scan. The intention of this meeting is to sort of discuss what our design targets were and what the preliminary design alternatives are and what are the next steps that we're going to take. Our process started with a charrette to talk through design targets as seen here. The most important on our list was to future-proof the design with 3 key things. One is improving capacity for the year of 2042. The second is to improve passenger experience and well-being, and you can see it dispersed through these 12 items out here. And the third is improving operational efficiency, especially at the front end ticketing and queuing areas. The target for capacity needs was approached using the ACRP recommendations, which is the Airport Cooperative Research Program. It was used to drive the numbers given from the master plan that the terminal is currently going through. Adjustments are made to this to make it more specific to Nantucket's needs. From this, we started identifying areas that needed to grow, as you can see in blue. Like you can look at the ticketing area, or if you can look at the whole room spaces, you can see that those spaces really need to grow for the 2042 number. And then there's some areas that needed to shrink, as you can see in the orange. These are specific to, you can see some of the terminal support spaces, the seasonal hold room that needs to go away, and some of the check baggage screening areas that also need to be reduced. Using this, we came up with 3 design options. So we'll go through the summary of all of these 3 and then get into the details of each of them. Jumping straight into it, we have 3 options here. One is a minimum build, the second is a not build, and the third is a best build. So with the minimum build, it follows the same basic idea from our previous visioning purpose, where before we went through the full study, we looked at this from a very broad brush conceptual idea, and the impression was to make maximum renovations on the interior and minimize the build out to just the existing plaza area. We did find that with the current study, we have information from the detailed laser scan. It identifies all of the system constraints, any structural, mechanical, code-related constraints. We also have the latest master plan capacity recommendations that dictate much larger spaces. And so for this option, with this amount of detailed information, we do identify from our current study that we don't meet our capacity needs. With the other 2 options on the not build and the west build, we look at other viable areas to the north and west, as the name suggests. and look at the potential improvements in interior spaces within these. Both of these options meet the projected needs, and so we'll walk through each of these in the next few slides. I won't get into all of the details of the existing layout, but just looking at the exterior terminal on a broad brush overview, we looked at the existing fuel point clearances from all of the aircraft locations and parking locations. We looked at existing generators and walls that sort of need to remain, and any existing entrances or exit points at the terminal spaces itself. From this, we looked at the existing program at the terminal. So everything that is pre-security, you will see is outlined in orange. Everything that is post-security is outlined in blue. And all the spaces that support these are outlined in yellow. We've used the same colors so that it remains consistent as we flip through these options, just so that it's easier to read. So going through just the layout, we would have this little bottom corner I would draw your attention to. For each of the options, we will outline what are the areas, areas of the renovation, area of the addition, what is the whole room capacity in terms of number of seats, gates, and how many restrooms are being added for each of these. Jumping into option 1, which is the minimum build. This option builds out spaces adjacent to the existing ticketing and security queue spaces, as well as the baggage claim. If you can see my cursor, it's the area next to number 2. The whole room also uses its adjacent space that is currently used as the CBIS, which is the bottom L, the inverted L of number 5 that you see there. It's currently being used for the checked baggage inspection space. Passenger flow for this one, as you can see in the lines, remains mostly the same. So a lot of the ticketing area remains the same. Folks who are departing will still go through this, drop their bags at the ticketing counter, walk through. The only difference in this is you actually have a dedicated queuing space, and the TSA security checkpoint is flipped as opposed to what it is now. What this allows to do is it allows for departing passengers to enter the whole room in a more central location, as you can see at number 5, and you can depart through gates on either sides. With the whole room being expanded down to the south of the screen, as you can see here, it takes up the CBIS space, which is the check baggage space right now. The only downside of that one is the ceiling spaces are much lower, and so you would have a slightly lower value of passenger experience for those who are departing from Nantucket. For arriving passengers, we build on the existing baggage claim space, but instead of having a platform where bags are loaded onto, we've replaced this with a carousel system, and this is true for all of the options. The second upgrade that we have done is we've added a car rental area, which is at number 10 that you can see, and this is also true for all options. In addition to spaces that are being added across all of these is we have a service animal relief area for folks who are having any disabilities or needing any assistance. And the second is adding a unisex or family restroom. And this is, again, just to emphasize, it's true for all of the options. The support spaces critical to the main floor, as you can see on number 7, and areas next to the TSA spaces all remain in the same areas. The spaces that don't need to be on the main floor are moved over to the basement. And some of these at the lower level include the locker room, the break room, the training room, and some storage spaces. We've also added a restroom within this basement space as a part of code compliance. Flipping into the north build, which is an expansion towards the north, as you can see here. What this does is it sort of changes passenger movement by adding a new entrance vestibule, which is right around here, around the space that is numbered 1. And this is used to access specific airline ticketing counters down south. So in this option, what we do is we sort of change the way departing passengers move through the space. As we know, one of the constraints that we identified in the July Commission meeting was the area in front of the ticketing counters is kind of cramped. There's a lot of crowding that we've seen happening there. So what this option does is it takes that ticketing counter and turns it and makes it into an L. And by this, we sort of break up that crowding behavior. So all of the people who are departing and traveling through commercial airlines will sort of use this main space, as you can see on my mouse. Versus folks who are using the non-secure departures would sort of use the same route that you would do as you do today. Pick up your bags from the shorter L of the ticketing counter, drop off your bags, go into number 6, which is the non-secure hold room. Once your flight is announced, you can queue up and then depart as you do today. For folks going through a commercial airline, you would go through the security queue, the flipped TSA space, as we said, through all the options, and then you would get into the whole room. In this option, the whole room is flipped northwards, so it does use the higher ceiling spaces that you see right now in the baggage claim. It also maintains this existing corridor used here, which is the south of the whole room, but north of that stairwell A. This allows for a little bit more flexibility within the space. For arriving passengers coming to the airport, as you can see on the north of the screen, it's pretty much at the same location as it would be, just slightly more north than what it is today. You would still pick up your bags from your baggage carousel, which is an U-shaped one. You can pick up your keys from your car rental counters, use restrooms, and you can still go straight out from there. We also built a kit of parts within this. As you can see, we have a couple of airfield constraints to the north of the carousel, as well as a plaza space that's being used up with the north build. So we came up with a kit of parts where we use an L-shaped carousel instead. That still makes clear of all of the airfield wall clearances, any of the clearances required around the aircraft out here, while bringing back some of the charm of the plaza that we have right now at Nantucket. It does give us a great opportunity for landscaping and give an outdoor waiting area during peak season. Jumping into the west build option, the only difference in this one is we sort of build out to the west and we push the baggage claim to the west of this edition. What this does is it essentially allows us to keep passenger flow separate for departing passengers. It would be more or less the same. The ticketing counters can be in a straight or L-shaped pattern. It's pretty flexible between the west and the north builds. You would then go into the whole room, go up through the ramp because of the existing level difference between the baggage claim area and the existing whole room. And you have two whole room spaces between them. For arriving passengers, you now have a dedicated path, almost like a circulation space right through the existing whole room, through which you then access into the baggage claim. There is some architectural opportunity to have a good celebrated space as your entryway into Nantucket using this corridor space. So that is one of the ideas that we've been thinking of for the West build. With that, I can keep the summary slide open for anyone who has any comment at this stage or any questions.
Maybe prior, I'll just do a very quick summary as well. So as the commission knows, we began this process with the minimum build approach, which was absolutely optimizing every square inch of the terminal as it is today. And as we've done that, we've found that in order to meet the programmatic requirements, basically the size of the spaces for the future, that actually doesn't give us enough space. Therefore, we looked at the north build and the west build options that still optimizes all of your existing space, but provides the additional space necessary to meet the forecasted need.
Thank you, Mr. McCready. Mr. Carberg?
I can give you a staff level recommendation,
Please.
reasons behind it. So we prefer, or we like, so we like the north option. We like the north option from a flow standpoint, but we also like the north option from an addition by subtraction approach. The within the walls approach with terminal, it does do a few things. If that's what we end up doing, it will greatly improve the situation. I don't want to dump on it too much, but it's expensive for what you get. It remodels a lot of existing space, and the approach remodels the most expensive space there, the checked baggage inspection system. I think it does risk repeating a previous mistake by undersizing the whole room capacity for the forecast demand. And when our existing terminal was made or renovated in 2008, it was undersized the day it was rolled out, and we paid the price for that in the 15 years since. I also, I look at it, I have kids, I go through the whole room when it's crowded, both as a flyer and as your airport manager. And it's very hard for outgoing families to manage their children, and that's a lot of our customer base. I'm not saying that we have to build terminals so kids can run wild, but kids can't even be kids. Kids are just stuck in a 4x4 foot box, and it's difficult for their parents, it's difficult for other travelers. especially with any kind of delay, and I don't like that. The west option occupies a lot of ramp space, a lot of parking space to cure what I think is a less significant problem with the rivals. People come to Nantucket. Even if we have a great new terminal, they're going to want to leave that terminal and go to the house, go to the beach, go to the gazebo, and get out of the airport. So the north ramp option, it fixes most things. It keeps the building envelope, I think, as small as can be helped. There will be costs associated with the north ramp, but the cost doesn't scare me. There are two reasons for that. The north ramp assigns the majority of the built space to public spaces, and those are accessible back to airlines. Our cost per plane passengers, despite being probably the most expensive airport in airline system, we're about average. We have room to increase our cost per plane passenger and our fees as we provide new and better facilities. And there's room for airlines to absorb that. And then I've spent a lot of time focused on concession and concession planning. And I believe that a well-placed concession can generate $500,000 a year. A 20% take for the airport is $100,000 a year to help pay for that bond. So between the increased assessments to airlines for rent, between concession revenue, and then hopefully we can find, a few $1 million in grant funding, I think it's a workable situation.
Thank you. Commissioners.
Could I put the north one back up?
Jonathan or Priyanka, yeah, thank you. The north build, perfect, thank you. And perhaps if you can you zoom in on the floor plan a little bit? We probably don't need the parking itself, just to get, so that we can get a better feel of the floor program. If it's not too much trouble.
I think this is the maximum zoom it lets me do.
No worries. Thank you for just checking. Go ahead, Mr. Marks.
So 0.7, but that's so instead of I think they were like that at one point, the way you came in and then you normally go out if you're going to go to Hyannis, right? You go straight out there, almost straight across. So on the left is going to be the counters now for those flights, and then where if you're walking in on the right will be where the store used to be. That will be the hold area for people that are leaving. Is that the plan there?
Yes, that's the intent. And the primary driver there is to reduce congestion in the existing lobby. And the tie-in with that is that now you really do have two entrances. One entrance will be signed for your larger air carriers, JetBlue, Delta, et cetera. They're doing the larger aircraft. That way they don't have to go through that tight neck where the Cape Air desks are. And then Cape Air essentially and the other smaller carriers that would be going non-secure would have their own desks right there in your between item 7 and item 6 on the plan. And no, I think when we went through that, it appeared to be a way that could be pretty successful in reducing the congestion in the ticketing lobby currently.
Yeah. So on the other side now, the larger commercial planes when they come in. So you have the two ways to get in the airport there. So the one to the east, would you be using that one a lot? Because I feel like you're going to dump all the people, like I've seen, the Continental planes, is it Continental, whatever, they come in, they go, if they were to enter the airport that way, you'd be dumping them right into where the ticket aging is and then going down to where the bags are. I like this layout, but I liked the way the flow was in the west build out, where you had that more center line. You know what I mean? You like to get off the ramp on arrivals, and you stayed in the secure area until you dumped out into the baggage area. I don't know if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, can you put the west up for a comparison, please?
Yeah, you see how you like dump through there and then.
Now, for what it's worth, I liked the north that had the separate entrances for the arrivals and the departures. First, I feel that the west starts to combine too many people in a mixing bowl, if you will, up where the arrivals are. And it's a longer travel. It's almost like having people come in where they come in now, where you've always come into the airport versus whether you're going to Hyannis or if you're traveling secure versus the north kind of provides the split of the arrivals.
And okay, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
I like the other entrance, the two entrances,
Yeah.
like the local
Right.
flight, so to speak, and then
Yes.
the commercial stuff, the secure area and stuff. But I guess what I was looking at when I looked at this is if you had to expand that, right?
To the north.
If you had to expand to the north, it's easier to do now because your baggage is all set up and everything for that. You could just extend the departures up north, right? Whereas if you do it the other way, now you have to like move that in order to expand to have more ramp space. I don't know if that's, I'm just trying to think ahead.
You're trying to future proof yet again.
Yeah, have a way to get out of the next jam, right? Yes, future.
But I guess I would wonder as part of our projections, I'm just kind of gonna have a free discussion here, I think, amongst all the commissioners on this, and I think it might be the best way. We're gonna be somewhat limited by the the availability of gates to how much more people you could really bring in, I think, through that area. So it's a very good point and I appreciate it, but I also wonder, do we really need to allow for that under the bigger build? One of the things that strikes me, of course, I appreciate that you feel there's going to be a way to pay for it, but I'm very concerned with the cost and the impacts of doing I don't want to be short-sighted, but where is it before you can only build what you can afford? There's an aspect of that. The minimum build as listed gets us 306 seats in the hold room. It adds 3,600 square feet and has 19,000 in reno. The north build is 13,000 in addition, so 10,000 more area of addition, 3,000 more on the reno to pick up 54 seats. Now that I may be overly simplifying it because there's so many other concessions in flow, but I also could look at it as the delta of 54 seats, including having to do 10,000 more square feet of addition. I think it's going to be important. I think the direction that we should hope to give to the consultants is perhaps refining between the north and the west. And then I still feel that we're going to have to understand cost between whichever one of these we pick and the minimum, because maybe that's all we can do. I don't know. I could just see the cost of the north or the west. I mean, and I see we have here, do we have, I know it's very early, far beyond price estimating, but I mean, are we at, I don't even want to say numbers because I don't know, and they might get quoted. So anyway, yes, Priyanka.
Actually, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. McCready, you're titled the same, but go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so I just wanted to, because it's a good point that you bring up with regards to looking at the cost. One of the things that we look at not just is the square footage, but also what's in that square footage that is being impacted. And Noah sort of mentioned something earlier that sort of alluded to this. So if we look at real quickly, Priyanka, the existing condition, the bottom right-hand corner that is sort of the one that's the space that's in play between the minimum build versus the north and the west. Right now labeled as number 3, that is where the existing checked baggage inspection system is. That's where TSA has their machines and their conveyor belts and all those kinds of things to actually check baggage before they get onto the plane. And because it is an area that is a relatively low ceiling and it has so much infrastructure coming into it, there's a lot of power, there's a lot of TSA fiber and communications equipment. Also along that wall on the inside, right there. So this is where the existing conditions laser scanning really helped. There's a lot of infrastructure of power as well as water, fire protection in that area as well. It starts to become a very, very expensive area, even though it's existing, an expensive area to renovate into another use. So Priyanka, if we go to the minimum build next, we sort of see what would happen to that area. And Mr. Chairman, you are correct. We don't have exact numbers here. I'm sort of maybe speculating on experience a little bit, and we are going to work on those numbers. But under this scheme in that corner, number 5, you can see a lot of that needs to get blown out and then repurposed, and relocating all of those utilities in that area where the orange circle just occurred, as well as repurposing the CBIS to another location, represents a relatively high cost per square foot for renovation as opposed to the cost per square foot for building it. That's part of the calculation. It's the nuance.
Appreciate that. And then can you flip to the north build one more time, please? And so I see with this option, you maintain that infrastructure to avoid that particular cost.
Yes, and maintain the CBIS location so that also helps us a great deal with phasing. We wound up helping ourselves with some phasing costs during construction.
Got it. Ms. Topham or Ms. Planzer, any thoughts or comments?
No.
From Zoom?
I'd say this kind of growth is, I was looking at these earlier today and I didn't kind of understand all the flows and the colors and all that. Now that they get a good explanation of it, it does make, I like this a lot better, keeping those flows different.
Right. And one of the things that we've brought up, in the past, and part of this is it's terminal optimization within the walls, but it's also our opportunity to look at the traffic flow patterns, pickup, drop-offs, TNCs, taxis. I think that's, you're kind of maintaining your entrances. I personally like the North Build 1 better than the North Build 2. I feel like picking up a lot of green space there. I would rather see a more effective use, perhaps a hybrid between 1 and 2, where you maintain the southeast corner, or I don't know if North is up. Yeah, North is pretty much up on this. So the way you have it in 1, but I like the multiple lanes and perhaps losing a row or 2 of parking of the front lot that's incorporated. So from a parking perspective, to hopefully get a more streamlined bypass lane for drop off, almost, I don't want to say Logan-esque, but where their cars that are stacked up and other people can keep going around, which we're not reinventing the wheel here, I think, for airport arrivals and departures. But I don't particularly myself like losing all that shaded space to just being, green space. I think you can use the way you have it in 1, and this still, as part of this, would be a bit of an enhancement, some perhaps new landscape and trees, but without, going that much into the parking was one of my thoughts.
So you're saying do a modify between 1 and 2.
Yeah. So see how this one has the lower curve in number 1, you keep the lower curve the way it is, but this one in number 2 has the opposite side of the parking.
Open that one up.
And keep that, right? And try to come up with, really, I think it's really important to look at, that has been a challenge in my observation for staff to manage, Leo, the curb side, if you will, aspect of things. So they, working that in. I think one of the things we need as a commission to provide some direction to the consultants, and recognizing that this is the first time some of you have seen this today and tonight. If you needed more time, I think that, we could perhaps do that. If in fact you're pretty comfortable with one of them, we don't have to, take longer. So I think that's open for discussion. And then my question to you, Mr. McCready, would be next steps in terms of timing and, you know, what's the next time that once we tell you which one we favor, we would hear back from you.
So the next steps, we want to get into some of the numbers, and we also want to look at this three-dimensionally. We won't be in a position to actually do photorealistic renderings, but roof forms are so important. The massing is so important that it breaks down in scale and consistent with designing for Nantucket. So we want to be taking a look at that and help the commission understand how that looks. I will say that there's not going to be a demonstrative difference between the west build and the north build, since from a massing standpoint, they're quite similar. But we do want to get that in front of you prior to moving forward to the next phase. We anticipate that would occur over the next month. And then from that point, Rich, I can turn it over to you perhaps to understand sort of the next steps beyond our current task order.
And I guess before we go to you, Mr. Lasden, just Mr. McCready, so when you say over the next month, if the commission were to decide on, say, the north option and following staff recommendation and some, I think the feedback we're getting here, would you still go forward with those additional work and renderings on the minimum build or the west, or is this where you start to sort of sharpen the point on the pencil and really just focus on the one that we provide direction?
If the commission is comfortable with a particular direction and wanted to give us that direction, that would allow us to take that a little bit further and sharpen the pencil further and have a greater amount of detail on one option as opposed to looking at all three.
Thanks.
So if there is a preference, it would be wonderful to hear that today. From a recommendation standpoint, we see both, again, the north build and the west build as meeting the requirements that we set out to achieve. And then I think that the nuances between those two and the advantages, disadvantages have been well discussed here.
And if you don't have to, but if you had to pick between north and west, what would you have a recommendation?
I think that, so here's the way I would answer that question. As a pure airport architect, I see an equal number of pluses and minuses in both. However, in talking about the specific operations of Nantucket, the north build does appear to have some more advantages, as Noah had outlined. I'm sorry, as the airport manager had outlined in the initial discussion, and thinking about just sort of the unique operational nature here on Nantucket. I think that the future expansion was actually a very good point, because that is actually correct. It is a little bit more difficult to expand if we do the north now. However, the other point was that what we really, at least in terms of the forecast, there's no real way to put more aircraft up at the building, loading and unloading at the same time as all of the other aircraft. And we are taking into account upgauging, which is certain current aircraft such as JetBlue, increasing the size of the aircraft without increasing flights. So that's already being taken into account. So although future expansion is always an important consideration for airport design, I'm more comfortable with the north build, understanding that we are programming for that currently and the restrictions on the airfield that you have, and I believe will probably continue to have going forward.
Thank you. Commissioners, are we comfortable with one option or the other? Do you feel like you need more time?
I personally like the north build. I think, to your point, I'd like to see a little bit more work done on the outside, like the traffic flow. Try to refine that a little bit. But I like to, now that I understand the flows inside, like I said from earlier, I think that one does, I like that one better.
I concur.
And as do I. Ms. Top.
To what Mr. Mark said, or whomever said it.
Okay, so it sounds like we have consensus, Mr. McCready, for sharpening the pencil on the north build.
Thank you very much.
And thank you both. Really appreciate all your work on this. Anything further on the terminal? Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yes, Mr. Lasden.
So a couple of observations. We are currently doing some curb frontage analysis. We've got, I think, 3 or 4 options on improving the curb frontage, both from a vehicle access point, a curb frontage parking use, and pedestrian movement. And part of that is going to align with the options you pick. Like the north build had 2 separate entrances for departing traffic. So, as we look into that, we have to understand if that's going to move forward with the two entrances, that changes our thoughts on how the parking will be updated. Specifically in the building, we are scheduling a meeting with the TSA. They have expressed interest through the airport manager on a couple things. One is having a redundant CBIS system. In other words, where the checked baggage is, they currently only have one machine, and they have some concern that if a machine breaks down, they don't have a backup. So they've expressed interest in a backup machine. And so the north build and the west build both show that in the drawings that the architect had put together. And then the TSA has also expressed interest in possibly having a third passenger screening location. Right now, there's two screening areas in there, but one they use specifically for TSA pre-check. So they actually only have one screening center today, and they've expressed interest in having the ability to have 3 passenger screening areas. So all of those we've taken into account in these options.
Great, thank you.
Good to know.
Okay, we'll look forward to the next iteration as this gets refined. Thanks again.
Excellent.
With that, I know, we'll move us on to fiscal year 26 potential capital projects requests.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have no updates. The list as I presented in the previous meeting just wanted to give you some scheduling updates. Our CIP meeting with the FAA and Mass DOT Aeronautics will be held next week in Boston on the 21st. I'll be taking the team up with me, including Preston and Preston and Maria. We also typically meet with the town manager. I don't have a date for that yet. And then our first meeting with the capital committee is on September 12th.
September
12th.
One more time, I'm sorry, the air conditioner.
12th.
12th.
1-2.
Okay. And where does that fall in relation to our next meeting? I have the calendar here. I'm just curious. So September 12th, we meet on the 10th. So we meet on the 10th. So great. We'll have a reminder or an update then, and perhaps any refinements that may come out of your Boston and or town manager meeting if we have to make any at a commission level adjustments before Capcom. I think that would be great.
Well, yeah, we'll keep that on the agenda.
Thank you.
So for the fourth quarter report, fiscal year quarter number 4, we received it. I haven't reviewed it with finance in the same level of detail as I had previously, such as for the fiscal year 23 end of year. However, it's showing for the fiscal year total revenue of 27.4 million, up $500,000 from 2023. Total expenses of 15.7 million, up 300,000 from 2023. Net earnings of 10.9 million, which is up 2.4 million from 2023. A projected fund balance of 9.3 million, which is up 1.8 million from 2023. And I'm sorry I did not end up bringing the figure with me, but we have 4 straight years of increasing profitability per aircraft operation, despite operations declining 22% from fiscal year 2019 to 2023. So we are operating at a higher margin with fewer aircraft, which I think is very notable, speaks well to what staff have been able to accomplish. It doesn't usually happen that way. Usually airport revenues are operation or passenger dependent, but we've been able to take advantage of the opportunities that have been given us. And we're fortunate for that. Any questions on the report before we move on?
Anyone?
No.
No, please move on.
Okay, on the agenda is the GJ Smith tenant alteration application discussion. My recommendation for the commission is that we don't act on it at this time, given the zoning enforcement letter that we just received, and we take the matter back up in September.
Anybody have any questions on that? the planning board had some discussion on it last night and also continued it to their September meeting.
What was being built? Were we aware of it? I mean, that they had no permit?
So it's the tenant's responsibility to obtain all of their building permits. The tenant installed 2 concrete pads, which I believe were meant to be the base for 2 future buildings.
Okay.
And that was the subject of the zoning enforcement levy that we received this night.
Right. Now, where the owner of the land. Okay.
So we'll work to get that resolved. But staff will, I presume, I think that's more at the manager and staff level, and let us know. We'll keep it on the agenda for next month. And onto the manager report.
Okay, for our project updates. On the master plan, we held a staff level meeting to review initial runway 624 alternatives last month, and there will be one additional meeting in a small group to discuss a recommendation that we will report out to the TAC meeting. Runway 64 alternatives are just related to future scenarios of sea level rise if 500 feet are taken off of the runway. It's hard for me to, I don't want to presume it, but the likely alternative is you just add 500 feet back to the site. I don't want anyone to think we're trying to add 2,000 feet.
It'd be nice though. No, I'm just kidding.
For the geometry project and DBE update, our Title 6 plan is complete. Our DBE revision is nearing completion. For our new ARF truck, I believe we're anticipating delivery around the winter break. It will come with chlorine-free foam and the internal flow proportionate system. And that system is now an FAA eligible cost. So the runway 624 centerline design, this is for the remainder of the work. That was the non-emergency part of the project that will be out to bid for the fall. Continued environmental monitoring. This is our ongoing monitoring work to support rare species management. We'll be getting ready to begin that in the late summer, early fall with some work to work. For non-AIP projects, the runway 2 centerline work and emergency repair was completed and accepted. I wanted to thank the contractor and also airport maintenance for painting some airfield markings that same night. They worked all night to take advantage of that. Hangar development, we've completed a survey and appraisal of Hangar 8, and we are moving to draft to negotiate the lease with Mr. Hagedorn. We've discussed the fence relocation in the bunker area with the impacted tenants. I believe we're going to work to get that done in the fall. You know, obviously we're busy in the summer and so is he with this business. For the fence relocation along the south shore, we're taking this work in the fall as a change order to the RVO contract. We've made a field adjustment to the road, just a matter of a few feet. It's very minor, but it will avoid all the plants and nuts. So we won't have to transplant and relocate the plants. We have covered the RFP status. For operations, I have a few items. On August 3rd, we had a bad weather, local fog, and regional airspace. Bad day. So we had 3 delayed aircraft that ended up canceling late at night. Flight crews for 2 aircraft stayed in the FBO overnight. My understanding is hotel rooms were very hard to find or not available. It wasn't a great incident. It was an avoidable incident. My impression at this time is that airline staff failed to inform airport operations of rolling delays. And really, they should have canceled much earlier, enabled their passengers a chance to find lodging or travel time.
That was the 3rd, you said?
The 3rd.
Yeah, that was a bad day. I spent the night in Hyannis.
Boston Pops, that event came and went. It's our busiest single weekend of the season, and it has been for several years. This year was even more so. From Thursday through Monday, we had 7,075 enplaning commercial passengers, which is a 5% increase over the previous year. We sold 107,000 gallons of Jet A. That's a 5% increase, and then all other fee categories were up. We had 3 minor ramp rash incidents since the previous meeting. We had a Cirrus that arrived to the ramp with a cracked wing and a fuel tank. It was noticed by line service employees, and we responded to the leak and contained it. It was then struck several days later by another taxiing Cirrus. We reported both incidents to our carriers, and we don't expect to be at fault, but we have assessed the fuel cleanup work to the owner's insurer. The third incident involved Cessna Citation Latitude wingtip making contact with the nose cone of a Falcon 900. The Falcon 900 had minor cosmetic damage, and the Latitude, I believe, was flown out on a ferry permit for assessment elsewhere. We put the ramp management update in your packet. We've now had 2 weekends to evaluate our use of the ramp, and we're operating it in the zone configuration for the plan with cold areas, which are quiet, warm areas, which are a mix of operations, and hot operations, which are typical busy operations. We've received a trial antenna from 1200 Aerospace, and we're working to bring that online. This is the vendor where we received a demo, and we believe they can provide a technology-based solution that tracks aircraft on times, aircraft APU times, and the times that aircraft enter and exit the ramp. So we can have a database to track APU ramp usage by condition, which will help our monitoring and policing of the ramp. Something we can do remotely instead of actually having to put someone down in a vehicle and driving around the ramp, adding to congestion. But ultimately, it's something we hope to audit in the manner that we now audit BFR collectors. Jet A supply update. We've managed through the summer so far without a sales restriction. Currently, we're at 7% above last year in the calendar year in Jet A gallons sold. We're looking good for scheduled inventory through the rest of August. For certification inspection, the runway 624 markings work was completed by airport maintenance staff, I believe on August 1st, possibly August 2nd. Great job to the team. And then for conference travel, environmental coordinator Cameron Woods attended the AAAE Northeast chapter meeting. She was an invited panelist for PFAS related topic. I think she said she had 250 people attend the panel. 10 airports want to come and see Nantucket and see how we responded and mitigated. And so we're happy to do that in the industry. For statistics, will you be able to share that while I go through quickly? And I apologize. I didn't get a chance to correct and verify the fuel sales information in the statistics package, so I'm going to skip that. For June, total operations were up 3.6%, and on the fiscal year, we ended down 8.8%. Southwest ramp operations for June were flat. On the fiscal year, they're down 10%. Enplanements were up 11% in June. For the year to date, they're down less than 1%. Cape Air for June was down in the Boston market 13%. New Bedford was up 7%. Hyannis was up 224%, 451 enplaned passengers versus 139. So that's the third month of growth. And then the Vineyard was down 3%. For JetBlue, Boston was up 7%. Washington National was up 80%. White Plains was up 79%. Then JFK was down 27%, and LaGuardia down 45%. United, Newark was up 19%. For O'Hare, United enplaned 582 passengers in June. They didn't operate that route last year. Delta was down in JFK 38%, up in LaGuardia 10%. American was up 26% in Philadelphia, 80% in Charlotte, 53% in Washington National. Again, DC continues to be an exceptionally strong market for us. And then LaGuardia enplaned 224 passengers. American did not operate that flight last year. They code shared it with JetBlue under the then Northeast Alliance. Freight was up 13% in June and ended down 8% on the fiscal year. Cape Air, UPS, and the mail were up. FedEx was down. We had 19 noise calls in June. That was up 1%. And then we had 22 in July, 18 of which were from single residents. For the APU log summary, we issued 23 entries. We had a 91% compliance rate from pilots in command after the first notice. We had 0 second warnings issued, officers reporting a high level of compliance. For our personnel report, Maria Basheva started yesterday. She's our new finance manager. I am going to bring her on for the September commission meeting just to say hi, have people meet her. And then we had to cancel an interview for a maintenance position due to an alert one we received today, but we're interviewing for both the open custodian and maintenance position. That concludes my report. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions? I had a couple. The aerospace antenna that you mentioned you received, is that operational or you're still working on getting it set up?
I don't know.
Okay,
We
fair.
received it and verified that it works. I don't know if it's actively.
Thanks. I was just curious. So it's coming soon.
Yes.
Great. And then my understanding is that Ms. Woods also attended the PFAS presentation at the Dreamland. And that was just in response to the public comment about that. I was off island that night, but we did have airport representation there, I think, which is important for our environmental coordinators who have participated. And I just wanted to sort of get that out there, you know, so that all commissioners as well as the public is aware that, you know, she was there, and perhaps, I don't know if you had any feedback from her or at the next meeting, if there's anything that, from that, presentation she might want to share with us. It's not there's not a lot to say, but I just think that it's important that you all know that we did, that she did make the time to go and to attend that. With that, any other questions on statistics or manager's report? Personnel will be nice. I agree to have the new finance director here at the next meeting. So thank you. Commissioners' comments?
None?
I have one. Mr. Carberg has informed us of his intention to move on. We very much appreciate his service, dedication to the airport. It's been a pleasure working with you in several of your positions over the years. We're certainly going to miss you, but appreciate you continuing to work with us through this transition period. Our intention is to seek a proposal from ADK for a professional search for a new manager. And so I hope to have a proposal from them for the commission to consider at the September meeting. If for a chance it could happen sooner, then maybe we'll see. But I'll start the discussions with them tomorrow, and we will see where that goes. They are the same firm that we worked with in the hiring of Mr. Rafter, and I could tell you, having been involved then, it was I was quite impressed. And it seems from looking at their website, they've grown their business exponentially, and so we'll see where that goes and continue this. So thank you again for everything, Mr. Carver.
Yeah, so sorry to hear you leaving, Noah. Seriously.
Yeah.
Pleasure
I'm
working.
sorry to hear you leaving, Noah. You've been great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you for considering my proposal too.
With that, is there any other commissioners' comments? Mr. Carver, did you have anything you wanted to add, or you?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment? Yes, Mr. Golding.
I don't really have much to say. I'd just like to leave these forms on the table for you guys to review. Just going over what I've experienced with Mr. Smith and I've spent already. So you guys can review all these. I'm going to leave them here.
Sure,
I'll bring it over to you.
Yeah, if you just hand them around, we'll pass them around. We do appreciate you know, you taking the time.
This one becomes public record.
Yes, certainly. You're aware of this, right? that what you distribute will be, this is a public record at this point? Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, did you guys each take?
It's a whole bunch of different things.
Oh,
We'll take our time later.
okay, perhaps this could get scanned in and distributed that, so that all the
So I'll tell
commissioners.
you what each one is. The first one on there is how much money
I'll
I've
take it
spent
back
so
for 1
far.
second, thanks, just so I can follow along.
Yep.
Yes, Mr. Golden.
So the first packet on top is how much money I've spent so far and all the stuff. I believe the second one, I can't see it, yeah. The second one is either gonna be the documents that Mr. Smith, got from the town on me, which is very concerning. And the, other documents are the messages and calls that Mr. Smith made to me.
Okay, we appreciate it, I understand, this is
I
difficult.
wanted to present that, but I didn't want to come out of place.
It was a hard one.
Yeah.
To sort of manage, and I appreciate your understanding. We don't typically have public comment under that part of the agenda, so we're trying to be fair to all, and so thank you, we appreciate it.
Thank you for having me here.
Appreciate it.
Sorry, things didn't work out.
Likewise. And with that, would any other public comment? So with that, we would entertain a motion to enter executive session for a general law, chapter 30A, section 21A, to review the executive session minutes enumerated on the agenda for review and possible release, for clause 3 to discuss strategy with respect to litigation regarding Walsh, where the chair has determined an open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the airport commission. Clause 3 to discuss strategy with respect to potential litigation regarding Turo, where the chair has determined that open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the airport commission. And finally, to discuss strategy with respect to pursuing legal claims against the manufacturer of PFAS and other potential sources of PFAS, where the chair has determined an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the airport commission, not to return to open session. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
And is there a second? Okay, motion's been.
Third.
Thank you, made and seconded. Ms. Topham, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Planzer?
Aye.
Mr. Marks? Aye. Mr. Viscarin?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you all. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. These were the ones that.
Those are the first ones that we all got a copy. Oh, so Boyana, we should give you a copy of, or Noah, you have one of these. We should probably also scan those in. I assume.
Thank
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.